Mark here for Mark 2.0. That's Brian, my co-host, and we welcome Star Wars fans. Unite, we welcome Chris Bartlett, the Droid guy.
Oh, gosh.
For the Disney Plus series. This is such an honor, Chris. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you.
I want to start out by asking you, what was your first experience with Star Wars, and how did that lead to you playing all these different droids?
Wow, my first experience was as a 7-year-old in the theaters in 1977, watching Star Wars, as it was called then, just Star Wars. There was no other films or TV or anything. So that experience for me just really ignited my imagination as a 7-year-old, you know. I loved magic, and it all seemed like magic to me. And then that was it. There's no other Star Wars, you know. But we had the toys, and we had toys, and so then we, you know, I'd get my own figures, and I'd go create my own stories in the, you know, by the fireplace, on the shag carpet in my living room. So, you know, everybody had like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, but then you also had like the RA7 droid, or the Gonk droid, the power droid, or Snaggletooth, or whatever. And you're making your own stories with these characters because you've just seen this incredible story, incredible characters and myth and everything. And you want it to continue. And so that's what I did as a little kid, is just kept making my own stories, building my own cardboard spaceship that I could sit in and pretend I was flying the Millennium Falcon and everything. So that was, you know, all the way through Return of the Jedi. I felt like I was the perfect age to experience those things. And then after Return of the Jedi, there was a special on television called, I think it was The Making of Star Wars, or From Star Wars to Jedi, I think. And I was about 13, and I'm seeing people make, you know, these spaceships and from miniatures, you know, or speeder bikes flying through the Forest of Endor. And sometimes it's it's an action figure on a model, or sometimes it's the real actors on a blue screen, and then some guy is running through the forest with a camera, and then they speed it up. Like, all of that to me was, I was never ruined for magic by learning the trick. You know what I mean? I was always, it always made it more special for me. And so being able to see that somebody behind the scenes, somebody makes this stuff for a living, and they get to make audiences feel this really special feeling, was something I was really interested in. So I decided then I'm going to work for George Lucas one day, and I will think about it every single day until it happens. Now, as a kid, you imagine these things, but you don't really think that it's going to happen. You just, you know, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. And lo and behold, it did eventually happen. That came from, as an adult, I was building my own costumes. And, I started with the 501st and assembled my first, Stormtrooper kit. And then I built a Tusken Raider, and I built a Boba Fett, and then I built costumes for my kids. And these are costumes that I really wanted to make as realistic and screen accurate as possible. And then I, would, play these characters at local events or Comic-Cons or whatever. And so then I built another costume and was brought in by Lucasfilm to come do an audition. And that, several years later, led to being brought in for a screen test for Q90, Bounty Hunter Droid, and Hyperspace Pilot. So that was the short version.
Yeah, I read about a little bit about that, and so you made a Stormtrooper and then a Tusken Raider, am I right?
Yes,
and
right.
then you made that, and then you attempted a C-3PO because you got some used parts. How did you get those?
Yeah, just over the years, I collected parts from obscure collectors where they might have like a leg, or maybe they had a a chest piece or something. Some other guy had like a foot, and so this took like a few years, but then you have to make them wearable, and so I spent 3 years working with a buddy of mine to I created 3D
the guy with the fiberglass shop.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is before 3D printing or anything like that. So I'm creating 3D models of what, and with measurements and everything of what these parts are supposed to look like the where the knees, here we go, where the knees, meet, and how that functions on on the real costume, things like that, and how the arms work and how the pistons move and things like that. So I spent 3 years doing that, and finally made one that was wearable, but I didn't know if it would fit because we were doing it so far apart. And but I would give him all the measurements and all the source parts, and sort of work with him to get it exactly to where we want it to be. And then I put it on for the first time, and it was pretty tight, but it did fit. And so one time Lucasfilm found out about it, and they invited me to come in and audition. So I did.
Well, that is totally amazing. I mean, how did they find out about such a thing? I mean, now I know that you started going to conventions and stuff like that. Is that how you got attention?
Well, I lived in Northern California. Lucasfilm is in Northern California. And the 501st has, they are called in occasionally by Lucasfilm to do events. There was for Revenge of the Sith, there was a media event, and they needed stormtroopers in the parking lot to, intimidate, people arriving and things like that. So, when you do something like that, they were very nice that afterwards, after, we did that part, they said, why don't you guys sit down, you can come on in and come into the party. So we did that. And then you just meet people, and conversation and things like that turns into friendships. So I met a couple people there, and we just became friends. And then over the years, as we were talking about things that we're working on or whatever, what we're doing for fun, they found out that I was building a C-3PO, and then they saw it online and said,
you gotta be crazy to even try such a thing, is what they said secretly.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, geez. Who's this Don Baez? Wasn't he like one of the creators in the prequels?
Don Bees is pronounced.
Sorry, thank you.
Don Bees is a dear friend and such a good guy. He was the droid. He was responsible for the droids for the prequels, and he worked with Anthony Daniels and Kenny Baker and the R2, the astromechs, and so he was very generous with helping me understand how when I was building mine, understanding like how the leg suspension worked and how the pistons slid in and out, and how parts fit together. He's just very generous, a very kind man, and so that just helped me build my own. And again, at the time I was building it, I was just building it for myself because I just really wanted to see if I could pull off a C-3PO. And that was he was just really helpful and instrumental in that.
So then basically your dream came true at this point. You were literally working on Star Wars and working on costumes. And what is the first thing you really did in an official capacity?
The first thing was in Australia. They had a media event, and they wanted C-3PO to give the presentation, because it was kind of a dry presentation, frankly. It was for Star Wars Galaxies, which is a massively multiplayer game, and the presentation was about the skill tree or something like that, and but they had a pre-recorded soundtrack by Tom Kane, voice actor who also does Yoda and the announcer of the Clone Wars. And
I love his voice.
Yeah, so he also did a kind of a rich sounding C-3PO, and so he had done the voice track, and then I did all the animation. So that was that, and then that turned into other other very special appearances on television and at the Oscars and at the White House and
Wow.
PBS, CBS, ABC, Fox, turned into a lot of.
Letterman, yeah.
Everyone loves the gold suit, bro. You just look
They
so
do.
good, man.
He's an iconic character, and I'm so grateful to be friends with him.
That's a cool way of looking at it. It sure
It
is.
is.
Now, you mentioned video games, and you have a background in video games. So, how did video games for you influence this thing that happened to you?
Well, it was like a parallel timeline. I'm a graphic artist, and I started as a graphic artist out of college, and then came into interactive design. So, like websites and interactive experiences. And then I went to somebody suggested I apply at a game studio because they all drive Lamborghinis, and I'm like,
Hell
well,
yeah.
I haven't been a Lamborghini guy since I was 12, but I've always wanted to work in video games. So I became the user experience guy on and designing all the interfaces and heads-up displays and targeting reticles of spaceships, weapons, vehicles, all of that, and then also everything that the game communicates to the player in some way was my job. And I called Epic Games and I said, hey, I just mailed you my portfolio. I wonder if I could talk to somebody about it. And they said, oh, we have like 400 people we're going through, so we'll call you when we get to you. Well, I really wanted the job, so I figured these guys are probably nerds like me, so they probably like Star Wars. So I had a sand trooper that I had custom built, sand trooper like on Mos Eisley, and I put that on, big backpack, all dirty, and a massive rifle, and marched down to the offices of Epic Games and marched in, and I rode the elevator. Nobody stopped me. There was no security or anything. I rode the elevator up to the top floor.
I love it.
And the doors open, and there's the lead animator for Epic Games, and he's standing there, and we're both like
a freaking movie. You come in.
Yeah. And I said,
oh my God.
Smart.
Let me speak to your superior. No. And I just stayed in character the whole time, and I never took off my helmet. I talked in the voice and everything, and I was just there. Basically, I'm delivering a message for graphic artist Chris Bartlett, who wants to speak to your superior, kind of thing. Anyway, they were going to a company meeting, so everybody had just come out of all their offices at the moment that I arrived in the elevator and the doors opened. And it was a perfect, I don't know what you would call that.
A scene. You made a big scene. Yeah. Awesome.
And so I did meet the head of the company and the art director, who's a big Star Wars fan.
Damn.
Anyway, so that helped them remember me, and they went and looked at my portfolio and then gave me a call that afternoon and said, hey, that was spectacular. The people that I had told I was going to do this were like, I don't think that's a good idea,
Right.
But anyway,
well, you're the smart droid, aren't you?
You are. You really are.
And then I worked on all the first 4 Gears of War games, and the Fortnite and a few other games, and then that turned into the Tomb Raider games, and now I'm working on Star Wars video game, which is again just a parallel timeline for me. Sure. The working on Star Wars and then working on Star Wars, they're not related, other than I just love Star Wars, so that was it.
That is beautiful. Well, you kind of made them related when you went over there and just made that scene, and now they're like, that's our Star Wars guy from now on, basically.
Right,
Chris,
right.
Definitely.
Yes.
Wow. And you're such an authority on it too, you basically devoted your life to it. I mean, for goodness sakes, And I remember being a kid, and I was building my Luke Skywalker out of just duct tape and paint and just
tinfoil bottles
tubes and yeah, cardboard
Yeah,
and whatever, and we're making
flashlight.
guns and stuff,
Right.
and gosh, I have
Yeah.
pictures of that. When I read your stuff, I remembered all those pictures of myself on Halloween, this or
Right.
that character. Gosh.
See, I
And
was probably like you. I was blessed with parents who were very creative and wanted to help me in my desire to, as a 7 or 8 year old, become Luke Skywalker. And so they made
yeah.
my first Star Wars costume. But the year before that, I was a robot. My dad built this giant
Oh,
silver
nice.
robot that I was inside it. I just felt like I love this feeling of being in a character in a costume. And so I've got this really great how it started and how it's going image where I'm in the silver robot costume my dad built for me when I was 6 or 7. And then I have the thumbnail image of Mandalorian season 2 finale of the
Oh.
chrome silver RA7 droid, that's really special.
Wow, that is awesome. Now, the
Yeah.
RA7 droid, that just originally showed up in the first Star Wars, right? It's when the
Yes.
Jawas grabbed the droids and they woke up in that strange place. And
Right. In the Sandcrawler, right. And he's there speaking some kind of odd language and
oh,
that was the first time we saw the RA7 droid, right. And then they, originally in that bartender scene, so I played him in the bartender scene in
right.
Mandalorian season 1. Originally, Jon Favreau had asked for a black C-3PO, a black protocol droid for the bartender. And I was like, yeah, I could make that. But I did just finish this Death Star droid, this RA7. And, we haven't seen that since forever. Since New Hope. And they said, oh, yeah, okay, well, let's see that. So I got that chromed and dirtied it up and everything. And then that became the bartender. And then John liked it so much, he brought it back in season 2. And in that one, I'm also playing and taking inventory of Moff Gideon's ship, as Mando is hiding in the shadows there. It's a cool featured shot, establishing shot that this is an Imperial ship. And that's, there's all kinds of characters in Star Wars. Sometimes there's some that are in the background that are filling out the crowd. And then there's some that are featured, that are helping to establish the location and the story. And then there's ones that are main characters, that really, help the hero, help shine a light on the hero, I guess you could say.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what was it like to work on The Mandalorian? What was the set like and the atmosphere? It seems like everyone's family over there.
Yeah, first of all, I work with John and Dave each time I go over there, and they're just like your next door neighbor. They just want to talk about Star Wars, and have great big ideas. John, the way that he is when he's there in the morning, he usually is there to direct the overall what's happening today. So like he might say something like, all right, what we're doing today is it's like when you teach, when you teach your kid how to ride a bike. You are excited that they're learning this new skill. They're excited, but also a little scared. But then you're a little scared because now they have this new freedom and then they could wipe out and skin their knee or whatever. But that whole thing that's what we're shooting today. And we're like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I understand what the main character is supposed to be feeling. I understand what the kid is supposed to be feeling, all that. So he makes it really relatable because Star Wars is very relatable, even though it's set a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It couldn't be more unrelatable, but somehow George Lucas and now Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, keep it very relatable. In answer to your question about what it's like on set, sometimes we're outside, sometimes we're in a set, whether it's in the hallway of a ship or it's in a hangar, on Tatooine, or it might be on the volume, which is the digital rooms that have, wraparound screens and a ceiling where we can project the other kinds of environments that will make it feel much bigger, like we're on a big, large outdoor set. And what's cool about that is all of the light and everything from the environment that you are in, because there's no blue screens, all that light and color bounces off of the characters, and they really feel and look like they're actually in that environment. So it's really hard to tell which scenes are, you know, on the volume and which are not, because like I said, we shoot some that are outside and then some without the volume, and some is a combination of a set and the volume, and some, you know, so the whole team does an amazing job of decorating the set so that you can't see the scene. You know, you can't see where the end of reality is and where the illusion continues. So they do an incredible job, and I love watching them work and seeing them, you know, what they do. So I might be standing next to this big jet engine, you know, and then barrels and crates and stuff, and then just beyond that there would be the screen. But when you're looking at it, you know, you're seeing a guy way in the distance and he's welding on the deflector shield of some ship way in the background or whatever. But, you know, he's really a digital character that, you know, when you're looking at it from this distance, you can't even tell. It looks so real. So it's really cool for actors to be able to, I mean, you don't even have to pretend. I mean, all you have to worry about is making your character, you know, do and appear as real as possible, and everything else is, you know, just makes it so easy to do a good job at that.
Well, it was brilliantly said what you said, the mind and the eye, you know, you see green screen, but then with the LED wall, those little hints of color are reflecting off of you just right, and there's no replacing that. In fact, The Mandalorian has this way of bringing things to reality better than anyone has ever done before. Not only, I mean, I got to hand it to the guy that said, let's just make a 20-foot LED wall. And probably everyone was like, what? What are you talking about, bro?
I will tell you, when I worked at Epic Games, right before I left, they were saying, this is in 2012, they said one day the Unreal Engine is going to be in movies. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. Like on big screens and everything. And, you know, that's how they were going to do it. And then my first day of filming The Ferryman, the goggled Kubaz, you know, with the snout. I was filming that, and I saw these massive screens for the first time. And I run into my friend Jeff, and I'm like, Jeff, what are you doing here? And he was like, this is all us. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, this is all the Unreal Engine. This is all Epic and ILM working together. And so the Unreal Engine is on in films and movies now. And I'm like, I can't believe
you literally knew the guy.
It's like, yes. So no coincidences in life, I believe.
And then everything moved toward the Zero character, which I just really enjoyed.
Oh, so did I.
When I first saw that character, I was like, that is a really cool droid. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Right. This guy was the first. He was the first one that I came in for a screen test. And what they did was they said, I want you to come in for this. We know about your work, your previous work. And we'd like you to come and do a screen test. And a screen test, if you don't know, is where you go and put on the costume, and then you do some kind of, they give you a hint. Like they said, all right, we want you to pretend like you're looking for something. Okay, like you're searching for something, and you hear a noise, and you know,
because the voice was actually done separately. The dialogue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The voice was by Richard Ayoade, a British comedian who did a great job.
Oh,
and I was in the suit, so. You know, if you look at him.
So knowing that, I was watching the episode and I see you, and you're literally, it must have been great to sit in the Razor Crest and sit there and mess with all that stuff.
You have no idea. I mean, I was, like I said, I was preparing for that moment my whole life. I mean, all season, I knew that day was coming. And so I was so excited the night before, I couldn't sleep. And so that day when John said, hey, why don't you go get familiar with the cockpit? I was like, yes, please. So I went over there. It was all low lights and dark while they're filming something else on another set, and I'm just all by myself, and I sit in the Razor Crest, and I just feel my life of fandom flashes before my eyes in slow motion, you know, and I'm here. And then I accidentally dozed off.
I was gonna say you're tired.
I was tired. But anyway, John Favreau and Deborah Chow, director, came in, and you know, I was like, "What? I'm here. I'm awake. What are you talking? Hi. Yes, I'm here. Go." And anyway, so then I spent all day flipping all the switches and, you know, doing the sticks and everything. And Deborah Chow goes, or John said, "Actually, Chris, since you're a droid, you're just gonna jack into the ship, and then that's how you fly it." And I'm like, oh, okay. But I still wanted to do all the buttons, so I'm flipping them because they all worked. Like the lights worked, the switches all worked, and you turn them on and off, and I just kept doing it in between. So they were like, just, that's fine, just keep doing it. And so it makes it in. Otherwise, I was been sort of just sitting there, kind of boring, you know, just driving the ship with my little scump jack, you know. Yeah. But anyway, so if you go back and watch the scene, I treated him very much like a praying mantis, like a bug, because he you know, he looks like that, right? Look at his face.
Oh, yeah.
So in my movements and everything, I went and researched praying mantis and watching them, you know, chew things and kill things, and also how they move is very spooky, and that's how I wanted to make Zero. So that's how I treated him.
How did it work when Z was on the flight deck with everybody? Because I know the lower half of you was CGI, was it not?
Right. So on set, it was, you know, as an actor, you have to be okay making
with the green pants or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gray pants with dots on them. But yeah, no, you'll notice when I'm walking down the ramp. When Zero's being introduced, I'm walking down the ramp and I'm looking at them while I'm walking down the ramp, which is not something human beings do. Human beings watch where they're walking, right? Mm-hmm. And the first time I did it, I was watching where I was going, and then I turned to look at them, and I was just like, you know, as a droid, wouldn't he know where he's going? Wouldn't he have sensors or something that he knows where he's walking without having to look? So I took a risk. And I was like, I looked at them while I was walking down the ramp, and I was like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall.
Yeah.
I get down to the end, and I'm still looking at them, and I'm still tracking them. So that was I was very nervous, but yeah, you're right. They replaced my legs with CG legs, and that was fine because it was the most comfortable droid costume I'd ever worn. Because hey, I can sit down, right? And it was very, loved playing Zero. He's so cool looking too. I mean, like he's got these cool ammo, you know, bandoliers, and he's got a weapon that looks very much like Boba Fett's blaster, right? And I couldn't have been happier to play this very cool looking character.
Yeah, I was almost bummed when they had it off him because I wanted them to turn him to the good side, like the nanny droid or something.
Yeah. Right. Well, the thing about droids is they are as pervasive or ubiquitous in the Star Wars galaxy as household appliances. You know, everybody has a refrigerator. Yours might look slightly different than mine, but they're pretty much similar looking. You know, same thing with protocol droids. They are. They all look pretty similar, but they do have some differences, and there's tons of them. You know, like just because you see one doesn't mean that's the only one that exists in the universe. So you know, who knows what could happen with other, you know, droids.
I read that in your designing, you kind of could swap out a couple things and get a nice new look to a droid just by mixing and matching a bit, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Disneyland used to have this thing called a droid factory where you could come out of Star Tours, and you could build your own little droid action figure. So you can swap out arms and whatever. And I mean, that's what we do on set also. So there was the droid, the traffic droid from the Book of Boba Fett with that almost gets run over in that high speed scooter chase. And that was originally just supposed to be a silver C-3PO. But because of the reflection on the sand and everything, he looked kind of gold. So So I just worked with them. Why don't we just swap out like the chest, and we can weather him up, and we can put graphics on his face and his arms, and so
That was clever, actually.
well, what it was is they said he's going to be in traffic. And so I was like, okay, so in traffic, maybe, in traffic, I was thinking of like warning arrows pointing to go, whatever.
That was
So
smart.
that's kind of what I was thinking. I gave him 4 different options of what graphics we could put on him, and they picked one. Robert Rodriguez picked one, and so I painted that overnight and got it to set. That
looked really cool. The markings on his face. I didn't really notice the markings that were on his arms. I read about them.
Yeah, no, he was only in there a short amount of time, but this is the actual.
That turned out really nice.
Head that I wore on the show, and
is that mostly like a light metal? Is it plastic? They look heavy. They look so real and heavy.
Droids are metal, but this one is fiberglass. So anyway,
I figured it was a plastic to make, because they're just so good at stuff like that. They can make anything shiny, reflective now.
Well, chrome. There's a chrome finish underneath all this dirt, So
gosh, that looks so cool.
Yeah, thanks.
That whole room is just amazing back there.
I know.
Thank you.
Just
marveling at that. Wow. Well, one costume I remember reading didn't go quite so well, and you took a bad fall after hitting a stormtrooper. Let us hear that one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was the bartender. The RA7. Yeah, I did. We went through that scene about 7 times rehearsing it, where Werner Herzog's character gets killed, the client, as we call them, by Moff Gideon's Death Troopers. And in that scene, there's all this chaos going on with gunfire and everything. And my job is to take the drinks to Carl Weathers' character and make it through all of the gunfire and everything. Eventually, then I do get shot. But when we went to film it, bumped into one of the stormtroopers and fell on the hard ground instead of on the stunt pad. But you know what? That wasn't my first fall. That wasn't my last fall. In fact, they, in Obi-Wan Kenobi, I played One Jack. One Jack. Well, this is Forlong, but he looks just like him. And in that scene, I do all my own stunts in these suits. In that scene, I had to get shot in the alley. When you see it happen, it's just one time and then it goes away and then you're done. But we spend all morning, Ewan McGregor and I, in that alley, and also Kumail Nanjiani, shooting me. I slam up against the wall, fall down, and crash on the ground. And we did it like 12 times with no pack.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, you talk about pinching, that was, but listen, I'm not complaining. I'm in Star Wars. I'm just happy to be alive, but it did turn out to be a really cool character, so much so that they made, so now I have 2, Mark, action figures. I can't believe it. And, that's really, the dream is to be in Star Wars. You never imagined that they would actually make a 1, let alone 2, figures of your characters. That's just, you're already at the pinnacle of amazing, fandom at that point. And then when they make a figure, it's just my whole childhood again, like came back around to Star Wars and action figures and playing and telling stories.
That is so beautiful how that came around. I mean, like you said, to have an action figure made, much less 2, you're there. You've made it. And really, you proved yourself. Do you basically work for Disney now? Did you have to who do you work for?
Well, I have a talent agency that represents me, and so whenever they whenever we film a new show, they call me, and then I'm employed for that day, or that week or that season, whatever. And so it's you don't, as an actor, you don't necessarily work for Disney except for when you're on set, then you're working for them.
I should have realized that, because we know Brendan pretty good, and he even through season 2 even was on an episode by episode basis, really. And
right.
So and then Leilani, she also worked with McGregor, and I hear that he was really a big fan. Did you guys talk a lot of Star Wars when you're working together? Is he like that?
No, he and I talk old cars, because we both
Nice.
drive, restore, and drive old vehicles. So and also we both ride old motorcycles. So so we really hit it off when we were talking. He drives old Volkswagen buses and trucks, and then I
really
I also, not Volkswagen, but I have a '62 Ford Econoline window bus that I restored, and then also a '58 Plymouth, which is
my gosh,
the Christine car. If you remember Stephen King's film,
very well.
And then
I saw that in theaters. I'm that old.
Wow, great! Yeah,
yeah. My dad took me to see that.
So it was so cool to talk with him about that stuff, and to be able to connect with him something other than the high ground. Because everybody says that to him.
I'm sure.
Everybody says.
Wow, I didn't know that about McGregor. He likes old vehicles and stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But otherwise, when I would fall as one Jack, fall on the ground, crash, and I'm on the ground, and I'm, my helmet's off or it's choking me or whatever, they take it off, and he's standing over me, and he goes, "Chris, are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay now." It was so cool.
On the 12th time, I'm going to lay here for a second.
Yeah. He was just so nice.
Yeah.
So nice and so patient. So anyway.
Yeah. Brendan said that he mostly runs into the crew. We know John, is just a huge Star Wars. No, I saw him get all teary-eyed when he saw R2-D2, so he's definitely one of us. Is that mostly most of the people who are working there? Do they look for fans to be a part of that? Do you figure?
Well, Bill Burr wasn't a Star Wars fan. I don't know if you ever seen.
That's right.
I was going to ask you about him.
Yeah. So but John knows him, and John wanted to bring him on the show. So it was ironic, that he was kind of bagging on Star Wars before, on late night talk shows and stuff. But then, he brought him on the show. So it's really just getting the best people. And Werner Herzog had never seen Star Wars, so he's just an amazing actor. And so it was funny when I was there with Werner Herzog. We were both standing watching a scene being shot, and I'm like up to my neck in Droid, and he's comfortable in his suit. And so I'm standing there. We're both kind of eating. And I said, I was just, you guys, I was so excited, but I was trying to stay cool, right? So I just leaned over and I was like, "Isn't this exciting?" And he goes, "This is serious work. We breathe life into these characters which would not otherwise exist." And I was like,
"Oh my gosh!"
Yep, that's just what I was thinking. Yeah. I was just gonna say that. Anyway, but it taught me in 10 seconds. It taught me how special what we were doing. I already felt like it was special, but it's also serious work. We're trying to tell stories and create stories and characters that relate to that a Star Wars audience would feel something with. And Misty, who does Queel. I mean, how did think about how you felt when you saw Queel, who you'd gotten to know, and then now
I was crushed. Crushed.
Right? And you didn't know, was he killed by the biker scouts? Was he killed by IG-11? What now he's gone, but he got
so close.
Yes.
Oh my God,
and
hurt.
that is so much to not only Nick Nolte's voice, but also Misty's physical performance that made you feel really like, if you go back and watch that, that's her eyes you're seeing, in the eyes of Queel, that's her eyes. And she just did an amazing job. And that's the thing, is that John just does a really good job at getting the best people. And then he just messed up with me, but he really gets the
No,
best
come on.
people to bring these stories, to new audiences, and I love it.
It's great.
I think
Yeah.
Star Wars has become something else now.
Mm.
And I can't really call it an improvement because we live in such different times than we did back then. But what I can say is you guys are doing new things in the same old tradition of the old Star Wars, and you're doing it so well. It just blows my mind. I was watching you tonight, and it was just blowing my mind how great that Zero was. And I was watching I was even watching Quill tonight, and I was like, how the hell did they do that so good?
Right. I mean, there's lots of secrets there of how things are done, but to help make it special and feel really real. But that's none of us like spoilers. So I'll just tell you that we work really hard to make the illusion feel as real as possible. And a lot of times there is no illusion. It's real. Like what we're doing is real, like Misty's performance, or mine, or Brendan's, or Carl Weathers, or Giancarlo, or Gina Carano. Like everyone is so real in their characters that it feels like it's an illusion, but it really is just trying to make you feel what this character is feeling, like we did like Missy did with Quill. And I play mostly droids, but I do play aliens as well, like the Ferryman, but also the Cascadag from Glavis he was on the elevator with Mando, right?
Yeah.
And that was cool. They built the costume around and built the character around me, and then in that moment, everybody, I try to make it as relatable as possible, because everybody has, when you get on an elevator and there's people you don't know, and you're just like, can this ride go faster, or whatever. You don't want to talk to anybody. Sure. There's an awkward silence, and then somebody makes a noise or a smell or whatever, And so that's how I tried to play it. And I was working with Bryce Dallas Howard, who was just wrapping you up in a blanket of joy. She's so fun and so sweet and so full of happiness. And also Jon Favreau on that day. And so I was supposed to walk into the elevator. First of all, it's this one shot. We call it a oneer. It's a one shot where the camera follows Mando into the elevator, and then is sitting there in the elevator, and then follows him out and goes around, and there's no cut. And so we were just trying to get me and Mando's timing right. And so they shot that whole thing like so many times, and we were just trying stuff, like I don't think in the moment I actually realized that we were doing a oneer, because I'm in the costume, I've got the little black eyes and it can't really see very well, but anyway, so I was trying all kinds of stuff. Like I'd look at Mando, and then I'd just like scoot off screen like this, just like, yeah. And so it was really fun to have Jon Favreau and Bryce there to say, all right, let's go to comedy school. We're going to do what you're doing, but let's tweak the timing just a little bit, and then it'll be funny, but not too funny for Star Wars, So I think that's perfectly how it worked out. It was great working with Brendan again.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And he talks about Bryce and John, and how great they are, just like how fun it is, and how everything is like on the fly, and gosh, I think that's what's making it great.
Yeah, they really let you try a bunch of things, and there's no fear of like, oh, you're taking too long or anything like that. And but we do have some experience, so that we are able to try our stuff in an economical way, without dragging stuff out, and we're like, okay, let's go again, let's do it again, and we're ready to go. And that's the thing, if you want to be an actor, here's what Jon Favreau recommends. Be on time, which means be early, because you never on time. You're either early or late. There's no no one gets there right exactly when, so be early. Come prepared with the stuff that whatever you've been given, even if it's just today's lines, even if it's just this scene's lines, and then come with ideas, I didn't know what the ferryman sounded like, but I read all my lines that came in English. I read them all like, "This speeder is brand new. It just arrived on the Spinwood freighter." And John goes, "That's good. Let's cartoon it down a little bit." And then we did it. And then Dave Filoni was like, "Maybe this should be an alien language." And I was like, I mean, that's what we saw the Kubaz in Mos Eisley, the spy, with the snout. He sounded like an alien, and we didn't know what he said, and we didn't care. We just knew what he was doing because of how he acted with the stormtroopers. And so, I do all the lines for all my characters as if they are going to use my voice for them. So I do all the inflection, all the emotion that I would want to put into it, and sometimes they do end up using my voice, like the server droid in Garza's cantina in the Book of Boba Fett. Wait, you forgot your Camtono. That was my voice, and I didn't. You never know if they're going to use your voice until you watch it on TV. You record it, but you never know what they're going to use. And so anyway, it was a fun treat. But yeah. I go all in 100% when I'm doing these characters, because that's what I would want to see as a fan. That's what I'd want to see on screen.
Yeah.
And there's nothing cooler than seeing something from 1977 come up on your screen. You're like, oh my God, I'm flashing back all the way to 1977.
Right.
And then you just see it's kind of a C-3PO, but he's got kind of insect eyes. Where have I seen that guy before? You might not even remember it. This is like the ferryman. You had to just remind me where I saw him before. I'm like, oh yeah. He knocked him off a long time ago.
Right. Well, when the production assistant called me and said, we'd like to bring you in for the ferryman. And I'm like, what show is this? And she goes, oh, it's Star Wars. And I go, okay, well, what is this character again? She said, it's the ferryman. And I'm like, is this like Lord of the Ewoks, or what is he? Is he like this? So this is going to be shirtless, and I'm going to be playing a flute, right? And she goes, yeah, you're going to be playing a flute. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's Star Wars. I don't care what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm in the forest with wings and glitter and a little beard or whatever. I don't care. I'm in Star Wars. And then I got there and I saw it was the Kubaz character, and I was like, oh, phew, I'm glad. That would have been my first,
The flute is an interesting choice, I gotta say.
It was the ferryman, not the ferryman. The ferryman. It's the guy who, in mythology, leads people across the river, and that's kind of what he was doing. So
Hilarious scene. You find out about Mando's droid problem.
Right, and then go on to play all these droids. That was a funny,
And what a hilarious guy came up in that sputtering piece of garbage. And
Brian Posehn, right?
Oh, he was great.
That land speeder was real. It was a practical 4-door big sedan version of a land speeder, and it was massive. And when that thing swung around, because it's on a gimbal, so it's floating when it comes around, it was so awesome. I just this day couldn't get any better. It's great.
Wow.
Where to?
Yeah.
The speeder was real. Gosh.
Yeah.
And that makes it fun too, because I'm watching these things with a whole new perspective, and it's fun because now we've spoke with you, and when I see you trying to meet the challenges of being in that suit and stuff like that, it's just so fun to watch the episodes again. So I imagine you have a lot of people who follow you and are interested in your work, and fans, right?
Well, I'm on Instagram's mostly where I go, just because I feel like I have the most engagement with fans of the show and of my work and stuff. So if you go to Chris F. Bartlett, that's my Instagram, and that's where I am. I don't know what I don't know. It's like 12,000 followers or something. It's not like, it's not like 960,000 or something. But
it will be after this. No, I'm kidding.
Close group. We're a close group. So
yeah.
But this Star Wars thing is taken off, and it's because
very
of
popular.
It's gonna go because Star Wars for sure. Yeah, it's going somewhere.
I tell you what, because of people like you and Brendan,
exactly.
Who Brendan was sitting here talking to us about. It's like being a kid, but they're throwing pads out for me, and that's the vibe I'm getting off of you. You're back at you're in your workshop, you're building costumes. Now you're actually getting paid and appreciated to do it. And it's been a great time watching you bring these characters to life. Great job, Chris.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. Well, I'm so grateful that you guys are watching the show and that fans are watching the shows, because we wouldn't have a show if nobody watched them, we have a great time making the shows, but it's all because of you guys that we get to keep making them. So thank you very much for watching and for talking about it. And then in a couple of weeks we'll be seeing Mandalorian season 3, which I'm really excited to see.
So I'm sure you're in there somewhere. I know you can't say a lot, but tell me you're in there somewhere.
Well, you know what? I've been a fan since 1977, and that's when I saw the films for the first time in the movie theater, and then I went and played with action figures. And sorry, what was the question again?
You're in the 3rd season, right?
yeah.
Oh, you're gonna
good answer. Good answer, Chris.
Well, I'm just excited to see the kid again, and I'm excited to see Mando, in his new starfighter, reconditioned hot rod starfighter, and then just to see where we're going. I mean, like that trailer, you saw lots of stuff in that trailer, but not nearly, I think, what I think what's great about the shows is they don't give away too much in the trailers. You as a fan kind of like frustrated when you see too much, you feel like in a trailer. And I thought this one, whatever, what they showed in that one, I felt like, oh, this is enough to get me excited. I can't wait to see what.
And I hope things go full throttle.
Oh yeah.
And I hope your success just gets bigger and bigger, Chris, because you've earned it, man.
You really have.
God, thank you so much. That's very nice of you guys.
Well, I just love Star Wars, and I love
Same
people.
Here.
I like to talk to Star Wars. And isn't it great when you finally see, you get to meet your hero and they're like, I love this stuff I do. I know Werner, he's a serious character actor.
Yes.
And what he did for the show was like
perfect.
Even Brenda was like, that guy kind of freaked me out. Kind of like you kind of had a similar story.
He freaked me out in real life, but he also taught me a lot about being an actor, and he was really great. There's when you watch these shows, like I mentioned, these scenes go by so quick that and sometimes an entire crew, 30 people worked on that one moment that just went by, and they spent all day on it.
Oh, sure.
And you think like, gosh, why was that a waste? Why, it's not. They were crafting it to get it. It's like sculpting, a sculpture. You work on it. You might work on the ear, all morning. But if the whole thing looks great, but the ear looks crappy, then it's gonna throw it off. And so we're just really trying to craft everything to be just right, so that you don't notice any mistakes or any holes in the I don't know, in the fabric of the thing we're making. So anyway, it takes a lot of people to make something so special that goes by so quick. So I love that you're rewatching them. And I hope that you'll be able to, pick up on some things you haven't seen before. So here's one to go back and watch for. In season 1, episode 3 was actually the first time that I wore the Zero costume, even though Zero is not the character is not in there. The costume is in there. That's it's the episode called The Sin, where all the Mandalorians come and rescue Mando, right? Yeah. There's all these bounty hunters in the street that are all closing in on, and if you look real close, you'll see a really familiar
There we go.
Bug-eyed character
Yeah.
who has a slightly different blaster. It's long like this one. He has slightly different ammo belts here, but it's still me in that costume. And I asked Dave. I said, "So was that Zero? He just had different stuff." Dave Filoni, and he said, "I don't think that's Zero. I think that's a different character." So, you know, like I said, droids can look alike and be totally different characters. But anyway, go back and rewatch that, and you'll be able to see. And man, I got some really cool shots where I'm, you know, this close with a blaster. And the thing about that is, again, how, just to illustrate how much fun we're having, is, you know, as a kid, just like Mark, you were mentioning, you know, you had like PVC pipe, you know, probably guns as a kid, and you're running in the streets, and, you know, I got you, you know, and then you fall over dead or whatever. I did that as a kid. And then when I'm filming that scene, I have a blaster, I have cover, and they're like, and cut. And I'm still like, I'm practicing, I'm aiming, like, okay, how am I'm gonna drop here, and I'll pop up, do this, and I go like this, and, you know, and so I just kept going. Right. I just kept going because I was trying to work it out. Like, I wanted the motion and stuff to feel like me as a 7-year-old wanted to see a character acting. And so when you go back and watch that, I get a couple of really cool close-ups of the character. And just when you watch that, just remember,
you're 7 years old.
I'm 7 years old in that moment, and I'm having the time of my life. It's so fun.
Oh gosh.
So,
oh, I feel so good when I talk to you guys. Yeah, it's so amazing. It's just so fun to listen to you guys.
Really is.
Thanks.
Do you have any more questions, Mark?
No, this was such a thrill. We're honored, Chris.
Been a great night, Chris. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what's on the horizon right now? You got anything else working? What do you got? Any something you want to mention?
Well, I filmed another show last fall that was not a Star Wars show. It's an Amazon show. It's a show called Shining Vale with Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear.
Nice.
It's kind of like a Haunting of Bly Manor kind of a show, but it has like a dark comedic undertone. And I play the villain in season 2. But anyway, that's what I was working on. You know what? I was watching the trailer of Mandalorian season 3, and if you look close, I saw a character. I was like, oh, I gotta make my own version of that. So if you go watch the trailer again, you'll see a white protocol droid. So
in a bar with other droids, right?
No. He is in the streets welcoming Mando to what looks like Navarro. And I was just like, oh, that's cool. A white protocol droid. We haven't seen that since what? Empire Strikes Back? Like on
Is
Hoth?
Carl Weathers in his red robe jacket?
Yeah, but
right then?
There's a droid in that scene too, right? I'm just saying, when I saw the one in the trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to make my own. So I got like a C-3PO and then painted him white.
Oh, yeah.
To look like the one in the trailer. Anyway, I don't.
Very cool.
You know, who knows what that character is going to do? We'll have to wait and see. But I love the characters, and so yeah. And you mentioned Carl. That looked like there was a droid in that scene too, right? And it looked like he was shiny. You know, who knows what that story is too. So, but I'm excited to see Carl in his brand new, you know, upgraded wardrobe.
Carl Weather, that was kind of a surprise in the beginning, but boy, did he do a great job.
Yes,
he is just amazing, you know.
He's really cool. I like the character arc of his, going from, you know, sketchy betrayer to, you know, someone who looks like, you know, in the trailer, it looks like him and Mando are friends again. So that's cool.
I'd almost forgotten, you know, I was watching The Reckoning to watch you today, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was bad for a while there. Oh
right.
Man, it just happened.
Yeah.
So much has happened already. You guys are just doing such a great job. So I hope, you know, once season 3 comes out and goes by and we get a glimpse at you and what you're doing, I hope you maybe come back and give us an update on what's going on, man. It's been a great time talking to you.
It really has.
Oh, it's great talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, we're gonna mention you on Instagram. Anything else you want to shout out? Pretty much that's where people are looking at you.
Yeah, that's where to go.
Yeah.
I'm posting. I post stuff on there about like, how to figure out your passion.
Nice.
And how to follow your passion in life. And then I also like to go out to conventions and meet, with fans.
Sure.
In costume. And just real quick, because
Awesome.
I'm such a costume guy. A lot of times people spend a long time on their costumes, weeks or months, maybe years, building their costumes, and they finally finish it, and they're probably exhausted sometimes. And then they go to conventions and they're wearing their amazing looking costume, and I say, hey, let's get a picture, and they're just like, like they're waiting for an Uber or something. And I'm like, hey, let's do that again. But I want to shoot a video of you, and I give them just a little direction, like, instead of just standing there, let's have you like turn around, like this. And so you'll see a lot of that stuff. And then I posted it on Instagram, and so you see a lot of reels and clips of people that I've filmed and given them, just a little direction. What I love about that is you didn't make a costume, you made a character. Because you in the costume is a costume without you in it, but with you in it, now it's a living character. So that means do the voice, walk like this character would walk, talk to people like that character would talk to them, and be menacing or annoying or creepy, whatever. And that really makes it special for people. So that's something I love to do at conventions, and I'll post up more of those. I've got lots of them on there, but I'll be posting my dates here in the coming week of the conventions I'll be doing this year, and there's quite a few of them. So I'm really excited to see everybody in their costumes.
Nice.
That's so great. It's so important to you too, how you get them to even kind of maybe come out of their shell a little bit, and really have more of a good time that they even thought was possible. People are just so kind of reluctant to take a chance, and you push them a little bit.
But they've done the majority of the work with building the costume, and now all they have to do is push it just a little bit, and it goes just a little bit of effort of character goes way beyond what you think it is. And so anyway, I love doing that with folks and with fans. And what's cool is it makes a magic moment for the person in the costume when they see the reaction of people to what they think. Could this be the real character? Is this a real character? It feels real. He sounds real. He looks really cool. So it's a very special thing when someone can feel something from your performance or a thing that you made, so like your podcast, your show. People come here, they tune in, they get to learn things that they didn't know before, and they go away thinking, feeling something. That's really the point of a creative person is see if you can get people to feel something, with the thing that you make, an unforgettable moment, or a cool nostalgic feeling, or whatever, any of those things. That's, if you can get someone to feel something, that's very special.
You nailed it, Chris. That's exactly what we're doing here. Wow.
Yeah, good.
Great.
Well, I feel like we made a friend, Chris. Tonight. It was great meeting you.
This is great.
And everybody check out The Mandalorian. Check out Boba Fett. Chris is all over the place. Places you probably don't even know.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
And catch him on Instagram, everybody. He's a hell of a nice guy. And I had a great time talking to him tonight.
So did
Chris,
I.
thank you for being here.
All right.
Thank you.